But to balance the bad, there was always my son, Jason. You all remember how when he was 10, he was this humorless blimp, this waddler? Well, that was his thin phase. Helen and I used to fight about it all the time. He had just passed 300 biggies when he turned 15. I had come home from work early, hollered my presents, was heading for the wine closet when I heard this heartbreaking sound. Sobbing. Coming from the kid's room. I took a breath, went to his door, knocked. Jason and I were not close at this point. The truth is, he didn't care for me all that much. He barely acknowledged my existence, pissed on the movies I wrote, never dreamed of opening any of the books. It killed me, of course, but I never let on. "Jason?" I said from just outside his door. The awful sobbing continued. "What is it?" "You can't help. No one can help. Nothing can help." And then this forlorn wah. I knew the last person he wanted to see was me, but I had to go in. "I promise I won't tell anybody." He came rolling into my arms, his face fiery and distorted. "Oh, Daddy, I'm ugly and I've got no friends and all the girls laugh at me and make fun of me because I'm so fat." I had to blink back tears myself because it was all true, you see. I was trapped there in that moment. I didn't know if he wanted to hear the truth from me or not. Finally, I had to say it. "Who cares?" I told him. "I love you." He grabbed me so hard. "Papa," he managed. "Papa." The first blessed time he ever called me that, his hot tears fresh on my skin. That was our turning point. For the past 20 years, no one could have asked for a better son. More than that, Jason's the best friend I have in the world. But our real clincher happened the next day. I took him down to the Strand bookstore on Broadway and 12th Street, where I go a lot, research mostly, and we were about to enter when he stopped and pointed to a photograph in the window, the front cover of a book of photos. "I wonder who that is," Jason said, staring. "He's an Austrian bodybuilder, trying to make it as an actor. I met him when I was in LA last. He wants to be Fezzik if the Princess Bride ever happens." This was the late 70s now, 20 years back. Schwarzenegger was nothing then, but when the Princess Bride did finally happen, he was such a huge star he couldn't afford him in our budget. I liked him. Very bright young guy. Jason could not take his eyes off the picture. Then I said what I guess turned out to be the magic words. "He was pudgy once, too." Jason looked at me then. "I don't think so," he said. I didn't think so either, but it didn't hurt to say it. "It came up in conversation," I said. He said he thought he had gone as far in the bodybuilding world as he could. What drove him was he didn't like the way he looked when he was young. An aside about Arnold, which I bet you didn't know. He was friends with Andre the Giant. I guess strong guys all know each other? Following is a story he told me. I used it in the obit I wrote when Andre, alas, died. Andre once invited Schwarzenegger to a wrestling arena in Mexico where he was performing in front of 25,000 screaming fans, and after he'd pinned his opponent, he gestured for Schwarzenegger to come into the ring. So through the noise, Schwarzenegger climbs up. Andre says, "Take off your shirt. They're all crazy for you to take off your shirt. I speak Spanish." So Schwarzenegger, embarrassed, does what Andre tells him. Off comes his jacket, his shirt, his undershirt, and he begins striking poses. And then Andre goes to the locker room while Schwarzenegger goes back to his friends. And it had all been a practical joke. God knows what the crowd was screaming for, but it wasn't for Schwarzenegger to semi-strip and pose. Nobody gave a, "Here the book is censoring itself, so I will too." Nobody gave a, if I took my shirt off or not, but I fell for it. Andre could do that to you. "I wonder how much that picture book is," Jason said then. "We're still outside of the Strand, remember, and we didn't know it, but the earth has moved." Are you surprised to learn I bought it for him? This is what happened to Jason in the next 2 years. He went from 308 to 230. He went from 5'6.5" to 6'3". He had always been tops in his class at Dalton, but now, ripped and gorgeous, he was popular too. This is what happened to Jason in the years after that. College, medical school, the decision to be a shrink like his mom, except Jason's specialty is sex therapy. New York Magazine rated him tops in the city, and he also met this lovely lady Wall Streeter, Peggy Henderson, and they got happily married. And had a son. I went to the hospital as soon as he was born. We're calling him Arnold, Peggy told me, holding him in her arms. Perfect, I said. The truth is, obviously, I was hoping they might remember me too, somehow. But down was down. That's right, Jason said. William Arnold. And he took Willie and put him in my arms. High point of my life. For those of you who have not yet thrown the book across the room in frustration, let me explain that this all really does have to do with why only the first chapter of Buttercup's Baby. And I promise to get there so fast you won't believe it. Okay, Willie, the kid, Jason and Peggy live only 2 blocks away, and I am careful not to drive them nuts. But I never had a grandson before. Not a toy at Zittimer's escaped me. Not a cough from him didn't keep me up all night going through my health encyclopedias. I could refuse him, obviously, nothing, which is why my behavior in the park was so odd. Gorgeous spring day, Peggy and Jason holding hands up ahead, me and 7-year-old Willie tossing a wiffle ball back and forth, a step behind. We already go to some weekend Knicks games together. I've had season tickets since Hubie Brown was sent down to Earth to destroy me. We have a request, Jason began things. Guess what we finished last night, Peggy went on. The Princess Bride. We took turns reading it out loud. Trying for casual, I asked the youngster what he thought of the entire enterprise. It was good, Willie replied, except for the end. I don't like the end all that much either, I said. Blame Mr. Morgenstern. No, Peggy explained. He didn't dislike the ending. He didn't like that it ended. Pause. We walked in silence. I told him about the sequel, Papa, Jason said then. Peggy nodded. He got really excited. And then my Willie said the words, "Read it to me?" I knew at that moment I was losing it. I remember exactly my fear. What if I couldn't bring it to life this time? What if I failed? Failed both of us. That's the request, Dad. Willie wants you to read him Buttercup's Baby. We all want you to do it. Well, it's too bad about what we all want, isn't it? I started, my voice too loud. It's sure too bad we can't have everything, isn't it? You all better get used to disappointment. And before I did anything even worse, I looked at my watch, gestured that I had to go, took off, went home, stayed there, didn't answer the phone, had early Chinese sent in from Pig Heaven, started drinking, was gone by midnight, and woke before dawn with a dream. So vivid, I went out to my terrace, paced, started trying to figure out the dream, and more than that, I guess, my life, and how had I screwed it up? It was a memory of that second pneumonia, and Helen was reading the screenplay of the movie to me, only this time she was young and wonderful, and she was also crying. On the terrace, I knew why. We are all the writers of our own dreams. She was me. She was me crying for me, for what I had become. And then I remembered she wasn't reading The Princess Bride. She was reading about Fezzik and the madman on the mountain, the start of Buttercup's Baby. And I realized that twice I had almost died, and Morgenstern had come to save me. And now, here he was again, saving me again, because I knew this. Standing there looking out at the city as the sun rose, I would be a real writer once more. Not just some schmuck with an Underwood, as screenwriters are still thought of out there. I didn't think I was ready to go from 0 to 60, to start a novel from scratch. I didn't feel confident that I could make everything up, as I had done for my 30 novel writing years. Let me explain what I was not ready to do. Take Zell, the Nazi dentist in Marathon Man. Olivier in the movie, and wasn't he great? Remember the "Is it safe" scene with the dental tools? There is this street in Manhattan, 47th between 5th and 6th, and I was walking along it one day, decades back, on my way somewhere. Can't remember, doesn't matter, but that block is called the Diamond District. It is filled with an amazing number of diamond shops, most of them run by Jews, and on a lot of them, you could see they still had their concentration camp numbers. I thought that day what a great scene it might be if I could have a Nazi walking on that street. Which Nazi, I didn't know, but probably I started doing some mild research, reading and asking people, and I finally came across the most brilliant of them all, Mengele, the double doctor, PhD and MD, then thought to be living in Argentina, the guy who did the heartless experiments on twins. Okay, great, I've got my guy, but why does he risk everything to come to 47th Street? I knew this much. It couldn't be to go to the prom. The most wanted man on earth had to have an unshakable reason. Years go by, with Mengele stuck in the corner of my head, and gradually Babe started to appear, the marathon man of the title. Then I caught a break. I read about a surgeon who had invented a heart sleeve operation, somewhere, maybe Cleveland, but I could put him in New York. Yes, Mengele came to America, to New York, because he had to save his life. Brilliant. I am flying for the next little while because I have solved my most difficult problem, and then it hits me. Fool. What kind of a villain is it who's so frail he needs heart surgery? My God, if someone chased him, he might keel over from the effort. Obviously, a couple years later, I figured out some things and wrote the book and wrote the movie and the scene that still works best. Along with the dental scene. Wait, what? Obviously, a couple of years later, I figured out some things and wrote the book and wrote the movie, and the scene that still works best, along with the dental scene, is Zell wandering among the Jews. On the terrace that morning, I knew I wasn't ready to take on that kind of trip. But this shaping of Buttercup's baby was a perfect middle step for me. Bringing it to life as I had the Princess Bride would give me the confidence to at last go back to being what I once was. So, I would do the abridgment of the sequel and then do my own novel and ride off into the frigging sunset. Thank you very much. Once offices opened for the day, I called Charlie, still my lawyer, and told him that I wanted more than anything on earth to abridge the sequel, and was there any way he thought the Morgenstern estate would put an end to hostilities. He said the most amazing thing. They contacted me today, the Shoggs. Kermit's daughter did. She's a young lawyer for the firm, sounded nice and bright, and let me quote her. We want to settle for peace with your Mr. Goldman. Tennessee said it best. Sometimes there's God so quickly. I met Karloff Shogg the next morning for breakfast in the dining room of the Carlisle Hotel. None prettier in all New York. Charlie set it up and decided not to be there. No point. This was a look-like where we would both try on our charm and see if we could do business. So I sat waiting for her to appear. With a name like Karloff Shogg, I figured a mustache was a sure bet, and don't even think about her armpits. In case you don't know, and you don't know, nobody knows stuff like this, Karloff is the most popular girl's name in Florin. Make of that what you will. This dreamboat walks in, mid-30s, dressed to kill, long, loose blonde hair, gorgeous. She comes right over and she holds out her hand. Hi, Carly Shogg. This is so great meeting you. You look just like the pictures on your books, only, may I say, younger. You may say that as loudly and as often as you want. I tend to be a little thick-tongued when sweet young things are around, so that was pretty smooth for me. The nutty thing is, at that moment, when we had met on Earth for all of 10 seconds, I thought, she wanted me? Want in the sense of desire? And if you know me at all, you know I don't think anybody ever wants me. Not wants in the sense of desire, anyway. What brings you to America? We're doing a lot of legal stuff in the States now. I just moved here. Now a pause. Thank God. She looked at me. I can tell you've never been in Florin. I said I hadn't. It's a little inbred. I mean, in Florin, if you marry your first cousin, that's considered good. Another pause. An attempt at humor. Sorry. I have dated some terrific women since Helen left me a decade past, but this one here, this blue-eyed lawyer with the body and the brains on any list, was special. She reached across the table then, took my hand. Let me run that by you again. She took my hand and looked into my eyes and said, I'm just so glad our legal troubles are done. It's been awful, I agreed. I was only sued once before in my whole life. It's true. And that was by an actor, so it doesn't really count. Need I tell you her laugh was bell-like? Then, to only improve her bank account, came this. You won't believe me, but I've read every novel you've ever written, including the Harry Longbow. No Way to Treat a Lady was first published under a pseudonym, Harry Longbow, the real name of the Sundance Kid. I am so in love at this point, it is ridiculous. The lawsuits your guys filed, you'll drop them? Of course. All 13. That's what we're going to do for you, and all we want from you is your goodwill. Goodwill? If I'd have had an engagement ring with me, it would have been hers. Hi there. Thanks for joining our book club. If you'd like to join the conversation, I would love it if you would leave us a comment. And if you'd like to see more, check out the playlist.